Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you joined me today for this workshop on student agency, empowering students to guide their own learning journeys. I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about myself. My name is Jill Pearson-Keltner. I have been working in the field of education forever, for more than 30 years, which is a little scary. But because I've been doing it so long, I've also been doing a lot of different things. I have worked with everybody from preschoolers to universities. I have taught in elementary, middle, and high school. And I've taught in all different kinds of situations. So I've taught in 5-day public schools. I have taught in cooperative private schools. I've taught in homeschooling charter schools. But most important of all, I have homeschooled my 2 boys. I have 2 sons. One is a junior in college, and the other is a senior in high school. So I have my last year of official homeschooling. That said, I work with homeschoolers, homeschooling families, kids and adults all the time. So presently I work in a 2-day charter school for 2nd to 4th graders. I have the 2nd to 4th grade class. I also teach biology and economics, as well as other sciences and social studies classes to high school homeschoolers, and teach workshops to parents, and also do research through Learning Journeys Forum, which is a group here in San Diego, California, where I live. So through all that time, what I have found is that I've learned a lot about homeschooling and about learning and about what works really well for kids. So what I have found in my time is that kids learn best. Learning is most effective. Learning is most powerful when students are engaged, when they're having a lot of fun, when they are excited about what they do, when they're passionate about what they're doing. That is something that really helps a lot. The other thing that I have discovered is that learning is most effective and powerful when students have choice, when they are able to say, this is what I want to learn, this is how I want to learn it. And this is when you get that, what we call buy-in. But when kids really are choosing to learn, that's when they will be most effective. That learning will be most effective and powerful. I have also found that learning is most effective and powerful when students are joyful, when they're having fun, when they're excited, because that's when the learning sinks in. That's when they say, oh, this is great. So one of the things that helps bring that engagement, the choice, and the joy to learning is student agency. And what student agency does is it really empowers kids to direct their own learning so that they are choosing the path they're on, that they're making that path happen, that they are strongly working to learn and to follow the path that they have chosen. So one of the things that is really important, I think, when thinking about student agency is to think about our own student agency as adults. So agency itself is the capacity to act independently according to one's choice or beliefs. So when we have the ability and the power to act independently, doing what we want because of what we believe. So we're going to take a moment to think about and to consider our own experiences. So if you are watching this live, there won't be a whole lot of time, but if you have if you have paper nearby, you're welcome to write. You can also comment in the space below, or just consider and think about your own experiences. So we'll just take just a moment first to think about a time when your agency was taken away, either by a person or by circumstances. when you did not have agency. What happened? Just think about, write about, comment if you choose. What happened? How did it feel? How did it affect your behavior then? How did it affect your future behavior? So take just a moment to do that. So now what we'll do is take a moment to consider the opposite, to think about a time you really claimed your agency. So what happened when you did claim your agency? How did it feel? And how did it affect your behavior at the time and your future behavior? So either take a moment, if you're watching this later, you can pause the video to take more time. Or you can comment in the space below, or just consider and think about a time when you did claim your agency. So normally in the workshops that I teach, we would take this time to talk a little bit about this. And you, of course, are welcome to write in the comments below. I'd love to hear what thoughts you had. Normally what people find is that when we lose our agency, when our agency is taken away, we feel helpless and we feel depressed and we feel angry. So if we think about our kids who have so little agency often, not our kids, of course, but kids in general often have so little agency in their lives. So imagine what it feels like to be that helpless, that depressed, that angry, both about life and the lack of control they have in their lives, but also about their education, because that is the place where much of their lives is lived. And when they don't have any power over it, it's really challenging. But then also, on the other hand, think about the time and how you felt when you claimed your agency, when you had power. And for most people, when they claim their energy or they claim their agency, they feel energy. They feel powerful, they feel energetic, they feel inspired. And when we think about our kids, this is what we're hoping for. We're hoping for powerful, energetic, inspired kids, both in their daily lives, but also in their education. So in the book, The Self-Driven Child, which if you haven't read, you should read because it's awesome. The authors write, agency may be one of the most important factors in human happiness and well-being. We all like to feel that we are in charge of our own destiny. So you can see here that, you know, in our personal lives, in the way we live our lives, agency and that ability to control our lives is very, very important. And then moving on to education, Philip Williams wrote an article about student agency. And in that article, he wrote, Nothing engages and motivates students more deeply than enabling them to become the active agents in the process of learning. So when we think about how we felt when our agency was taken away, and then when we claimed our agency, and then we have that and let that inform the way we work with our children in their education. Obviously, we want to create kids that are powerful rather than helpless, energetic rather than depressed, and inspired rather than angry. So creating a space for them to have agency is really important. Finally, so agency affects us on a personal level, it affects us on an educational level. But the thing that I find really important for my own kids, both biological and students, is I want them to know that they have power over their world, that they can affect their world, that they can help people, that they can make the world a better place. So Kristen Renwick Monroe was a researcher who was looking at the people who lived during World War II in Nazi Germany. And she was comparing people who were Nazi sympathizers or even just bystanders, and comparing them to people who helped the disenfranchised, helped people who were in danger. And she was trying to find out what made the difference. And she was planning to study altruism. That's what she thought her paper would be on. But what she found was that the thing that made the difference between people who were bystanders who said, I have no control over this, and people who reached forward to help others was agency. So she writes here, rescuers of, she calls them rescuers, but rescuers victims in Nazi Germany have a strong sense of agency. Bystanders see themselves as people who are weak on agency, with little control over their lives and little they can do to affect outside events. So this really spoke to me, because one of the things that I really want for my children is the ability to affect their world, and that for them to know that they have the power to do that. And agency is a wonderful way to do that. So homeschooling is the perfect opportunity to guide your kids and teach them and give them the opportunities to practice agency, to make their power over their learning journey more strong and thorough. You can give your kids the freedom to design and follow their own path. So we all have different ideas about homeschooling. We all have different philosophies about homeschooling. So that freedom might be just one small piece of what they do, or it may be an entire learning journey that they're creating on their own. But homeschooling in general is a wonderful way to work on that. So one of the challenges, though, is that students need to learn skills in order to have agency for themselves. So we often think, oh, if we just give kids time and say, okay, do what you want, they'll be successful and follow their dreams. But it isn't just time, though that is important, but it's also some really challenging skills. Skills of self-awareness, skills of voice, and skills of enactment. So self-awareness, this is students knowing and being aware of themselves and knowing enough about themselves to know first what they want. So we would think, oh, of course they know what they want, that's silly. That said, how many times have we asked kids, what do you want? I don't know, so figuring out what you want, what you care about, what you're passionate about can be a very challenging skill. The other part of self-awareness is knowing whether the students are effective in making their learning happen. So are they, they may say, oh yeah, I know what I want, I'm fine, I got it. But then do they actually follow through, and do they actually learn the things that they really want to learn? And that, even knowing whether that's happening or not, can be very challenging for kids. The second skill is voice. And there are two levels of voice. One, students need to be able to voice what they want to learn. And this is very similar in some ways to self-awareness. However, if a student can't say what they want to learn, is it because they don't know what they want to learn? Or is it because they're unable to convey what they want to learn? Perhaps they're unable to convey it because they don't have the words and the languaging to explain what they want to learn. Or maybe it's because they're shy and insecure and don't have the confidence to do that. So being aware of developing that kind of voice is important. The other side of voice is using the skills both of speaking and listening to work with mentors or to work with a group. Now, occasionally a student just wants to learn by themselves, and they can learn by themselves, and everything they need to know they can get individually. But often they need to find a mentor to help them, help teach them a skill, or they want to work with a group of people because there are definitely benefits there. So do they have the voice, including speaking and listening skills, to work with others? And finally, the skill of enactment is very important in student agency. So students need to learn how to make their learning happen. And this is actually incredibly challenging. So it requires planning, it requires initiative, it requires courage, and even adults have a hard time with making things happen. But if we expect our kids to graduate from high school and either go to college or go work in the workplace, they will be expected to make their learning happen or to make their projects happen. And yet, we can't just throw them into that position when they get older. We need to let them practice, let them learn the important skills, and let them practice now when they're younger so that they can be successful when they get older in those situations. So I did research with kids, both in the program where I teach, which is kindergarten through 8th grade, as well as high school students, to learn about agency, to teach them the skills necessary for agency. And one of the things I wanted to know is where they were at and what skills they needed to develop. So if you look at this rubric here, on the left column, it says self-awareness. Do I know what I want to learn? Do I know if I'm effective? There's voice. Can I convey my needs and wishes? And can I use my voice effectively, for example, with groups or mentors? And enactment. Can I make my learning happen? Can I access support and resources? So in this rubric, for each of these skills, there's a beginning example and beginning skills, progressing, skilled, and advanced. So for example, for the self-awareness, beginning would be, I have trouble thinking of what I want to learn on my own, but when people suggest ideas, I can learn topics that I find interesting, or I can find learning topics that I find interesting. When they progress, I can make a list of things I like to, sorry about that. I can make a list of things I like to learn about on my own. When they are skilled, I know what I like to learn about, and I have some ideas about how to make this happen in ways that work for me and my learning style. And in the advanced category, I know what I like to learn about and the educational path that calls me, and I know the steps to take in order to get there. So for each of these, you can see how things develop in terms of voice and being able to work in groups. Beginning, sometimes I'm able to join a group to learn. Progressing, I'm usually able to. Skilled, they start to be able to create their own group. Sometimes I can use my voice to enlist others' help or to join and create a community for learning. And then advanced, I can effectively enlist mentors, support, and a community. So during the research, the way that I used this was I filled this out at the beginning and then at the end to find out how kids progressed with the the teaching about the agency skills that we were working on. So obviously it's going to be very different to fill this out with a kindergartner than it is to fill this out with a senior. So by the time the kids are older, they can fill it out. And it's a really wonderful way for them to consider, to have that metacognition, that awareness of their thinking, and to say, what am I good at and what do I need to work on? When I did this with the younger kids, the parents filled it out, and it was really helpful for the parents to fill it out about their children so that they had ideas about where their kids were and what their kids needed to work on. And then some of the kids I just interviewed. So I would interview the kids and ask them these kinds of questions in different language, and language that was appropriate for their age level. So what I did when I did this with my class is I did it at the beginning and the end. And then for each child, I filled it out. Their parents filled it out, and the kids were interviewed to fill it out. And I also had an outside observer. So I had a lot of people giving feedback. And then this is very quickly, I know it's academic-y, but you can see here, so the blue lines were the baseline agency skills, so filling out that rubric at the very beginning, how they did, and then the red was at the end after we had been working on our agency skills over several months. I filled out the rubrics again and had other people do their part. And you can see that everybody, even the kids for whom agency is really challenging, improved at least some. So agency is something that we can work on and improve over time. So one of the things that's important is to have tools for building agency. So this link here is to our Learning Journeys Forum website, and then it leads to a student agency website. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and then I'm going to open it up again. All right. Because I want you to see what is available on these websites, so that you can see what the possibilities are, because there is a lot out there. So this is the student agency website. And if you go down, and the reason I'm showing you this is because there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of tools that you can use in working with your own kids. So for example, down here it has, what is it? Why is it important? How can we create it? Those are things we've talked about a little bit. But if you go up here at the top, the methods give some different methods for working on the different skills. So for example, for each topic, for each skill that we have, self-awareness, voice, and enactment, you can click on a link, and it has some possibilities of things that they can do. So you can go there to see what are some things that would be helpful, and also asking questions and contemplating answers. One of the things that I found for kids that improved their agency the most was really just talking about it and thinking about it and being very aware of the choices they were making and why they were making those choices. So that is something that is really helpful. And then in the resources section, there are two things that I have created, and both are available for free PDF downloads, so you can download them for free. So over on the left is a student agency improver's guide. And what this has is it's got an instructions booklet for how to use it. It's got journals for the parent or teacher, the teen, kids. It has topic and method cards, and these are for those kids who, when you say, what would you like to do today? And they say, these are just lists of things that they can go through and find. So I had one student who, for the life of her, had no idea what she wanted to do, but when she had cards to look at, she could go through and say, yes, no, no, yeah, that sounds really interesting. So they're very helpful in that way. And then there's also a copy of the student rubric that I gave you before. And then on this side, these are the student agency curiosity questions. So it is in its complete form, a booklet, but there's a PDF download, so you can get all the information. It's not as pretty, but it works. And what this basically has is it has a little bit of a description of the different skills of student agency. And then it has lists of curiosity questions to encourage self-awareness, voice, enactment, and then it has, again, another copy of the student agency rubric. But this is a way to encourage those conversations. So if a kid seems really stuck with their voice, if they're screaming, they clearly know what they need or know what they want, but they can't for the life of them say it, in the voice section, it gives you some ideas. These are some questions you could ask to work with your child. And then finally, if you are gung-ho and ready to go, here is some of my research. So this first one was is basically my master's thesis. So it's a little bit dense, but at the end in the appendix, it has all of the kind of worksheets and rubrics and questions and things that I did with my students to help teach student agency. So if you skim through the dense parts, you can get to there's some good information there. There's an article on honoring student voice and how we can really work to honor student voice. And then another one just on the learning journey that I have taken with my colleagues there to come to the program to create Learning Journeys Forum, and then also the program where we work in San Diego, California. So thank you so very much for joining me for this. I really hope that the conversation will continue either in the comments below, or always feel free to reach out on our website to communicate. We have a Facebook page and email, if you have any questions, because there's so much wisdom in the homeschooling community. And I would love, that's why we created the forum, as a place for people to share their ideas and to share their knowledge. So I look forward to hearing from you and wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.